On the very back of your handouts, there's kind of a blank page. Originally, we had a sheet that said key learning points. I think Adele had something similar for you. So if there's any key learning points as you go through the day, this would be a good place for you to just jot some things down. Also, on your tables is a ticket out the door. And this is something that I'll ask you for as you're leaving, but it's also really geared to have you to reflect on what you're going to take away from this. So we will use this information. I share it with Courtney and Julia, and I use it for my own evaluation purposes and, to change things if I need to or whatever. So this information will be very helpful to us, and I appreciate your taking a look at that. The force field analysis section of your handouts is towards the end. I think it begins on page 37 with the introductory information. And we did have a really nice morning. So that was, you had and I had, right? So that prepares us for a good afternoon. So we're going to do some introductory activities, talk about what we mean by professional learning community. Think about where we are now in our journey, because even though some of you might be starting out, you're at different stages. Maybe some of you already have teams. Maybe some of you are thinking about starting teams. So we're going to be having those kinds of discussions. Actually, we're going to walk through the force field analysis as a group activity so that I can be the leader, kind of to lead you through that exercise. Talk about what are some of the key elements in terms of purpose and succeeding with your mission. And then you're actually going to do an activity with your districts or at your tables to do your own force field assessment. So we're going to kind of progress through that as the day goes on. This is what you said that you would like to get out of the day. As you can see, most people were interested in strategies to overcome resistance to change and knowing about what kind of professional development might be needed to prepare teachers and administrators to lead change. Some of the challenges that you said you faced, of course, there's always the challenge of not having enough time, right? But the second challenge was needing to develop leadership skills to help teachers to meet and collaborate effectively. I see people shaking their heads. So what I decided to do is, in my demonstration of how to use force field analysis, we're going to use the example of teacher-leader professional development, so that this isn't going to be just an exercise, but it'll also be an opportunity for us to start thinking about what kind of things you're going to be needing when you go back. So I thought that was a good kind of a twofold activity. And these are our objectives for today. You have them in the beginning of your handout material in a different format. But the key that I want you to walk out with today, a couple of keys. I want you to walk out with something useful, not just theory. So the force field analysis is a technique that you can use in any kind of a situation where you want to bring about change. And as a leader, it's nice to have a way to think about that. So this is just another tool in your toolkit. So the first thing I'd like to do before we even get to this portion is ask if you wouldn't mind really quickly, you probably know each other a little bit, but if we could just go around the table and mention just what school district you're from, and if you have professional learning communities yet, or maybe you're just starting, or have you progressed already. So just, take 2 or 3 minutes to kind of go around the room. And may I ask that we start with your group? Okay.
Okay. Or at the regional level, and we're continuing that structure with grants.
Okay.
But we're enhancing our understanding of how they can look better and be better.
Wonderful. Great, thank you. And we have you sitting by yourself. Would you like to join another table, or yeah? Okay.
No, I think I'll move.
Okay. So what district are you from?
Oh, I'm from Connecticut, actually.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So you definitely probably want to move and sit with some folks. How about this table up here?
Hi, we're from Southwest Falls School District.
Okay.
Right up the road. Sorry for the people that have a long drive. Shorter drive to get here. We are not using professional learning communities.
Okay.
To its fruition.
Okay.
As part of the grant,
Mhm.
we're looking at, what we can do in a short amount of time to have more meaningful conversations.
Nice.
But to call it a professional learning community, we're not doing that.
Okay, so I'll have to alter my conversation a little bit when we have our activities with your group so that it's meaningful to you. Okay, that's great. This group over here?
We're from North Tonawanda, the Western New York area. So we had a long ride.
Sorry.
And we got the STLE grant, and we're looking to branch out into the personal learning communities. We have different groups in each building
Okay.
that have different names and titles, and we're trying to see how we can merge them into
Nice.
something more of this.
Nice, very good, thank you. This table here?
Burgess Rivera from New York State United Teachers.
Okay,
Maria Sponda from the Regions Research Fund.
wonderful,
Courtney Max from NISA.
thank you. And this table?
I'm sorry. I'm Carlos Dan. We're from Rochester, New York.
Oh, okay,
We're in STLE 1 and 2 recipients. And I'll let these folks introduce themselves, but in terms of PLC, we've been dabbling in PLC work
Okay.
for about 10 years.
oh, wow.
Doesn't stick.
Mm-hmm,
Change occurs within the system because we're such a large organization.
yes,
that
yes.
The learning goes with folks
Mm-hmm,
or doesn't transfer well from one location to another.
okay, so we're looking to talk about making it sticking really better, okay? And same? Oh, okay, okay, right, good. This table?
We're from the Hadley Luzerne Central School District, which is between Saratoga and Lake George, so we're also relatively close, sorry. We have some structures in place for some collaboration, which we've begun through the STLE 2 grant, but we haven't really dabbled in the PLC per se,
Okay.
and it's something that I think we're looking to pursue.
Okay, great. So if nothing else, you'll learn more about it today, and you'll learn some techniques and that type of thing. Very good. This table?
I'm from the Mount Vernon City School District, and within the school district, we have some schools that have PLCs up and running beautifully.
Mhm.
We have other schools who are just trying to get them up
Okay,
and running.
okay.
So we have a variety in the district.
Okay, were there some people from your district here this morning?
there were
Yes,
this
okay, great, very good. At this table?
We're from, almost all of us, sorry. Oglescale, Richmondville, Central School District.
From where, I'm sorry?
Oglescale, Richmondville,
Okay,
about 40.
and where are you with your PLC
We
process?
are starting today.
Okay, you're starting today, all right, that's good. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're from the Maryvale School District outside of Buffalo, and we did enjoy the ride. We are both new to the district, so we had been involved with PLCs in a prior district about 7 or 8 years ago. And
Wonderful.
so we know the benefits of being a part of that process, but we're beginning it with our district.
Exciting, very good, thank you. Yes, this is table?
South Country School District from Long Island,
Mm-hmm,
so we had the longest ride.
mm-hmm,
Maybe not. We are part of STYLE, and we do not have professional learning communities, but just from what we learned today, it's something we definitely want to pursue and put in place.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you.
hopefully we'll learn.
okay, great. This table back here?
We're representing Catskill Central School District, and there are no professional learning communities currently in place, but we'll echo what you just said, that we are looking forward to planting these.
Okay, now, are you okay sitting by yourselves? Do you want to join one of the tables? Because
We have more
you have more coming. Okay, great. All right, that's fine. Good. So the first thing I'd like you to do, and we'll think about how we're going to tailor some of these things for you, is to okay, look at page 38 in your handouts. And whatever you call it, whether it's professional learning community, small learning community, inquiry teams, I would like each of you to put down your own definition of what you think it means to be a professional learning community. And then if you have colleagues here with you, after you have your own definition, I'd like you to compare it with your colleagues. If you're one person sitting with a school district, you can just have a general table discussion to see how those compare. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. What I would like to hear from you now is how similar were your definitions? Did you find out that you came out with similar, at least your key points or key words in the definition? Or was there a disparate kind of a process going on? How similar? Similar definitions? Very similar. Same here? Okay. Were there some key words that defined what it means to be a professional learning community? Like collaboration? Anything else?
Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement, excellent. Anything else? Communication, excellent. Student focused, excellent. Sharing, good. Okay, so we have some of the key elements. This is a definition example that you have on page 39 in your handout material. And we actually came up with this in my work with Webster. I gave them kind of a starting point, and from there we tweaked it to the point where it became theirs. And I know you've heard their whole story already, so you know that we've been working together for a number of years. But I think a couple of things I'd like to say about this. It's important that you have a common definition as a district. It doesn't matter whether every team in every school is doing, exactly the same thing, but in terms of the process, you need a vision, and the vision has to be clear. Clarity is important. We had to clarify things at Webster. They had already been doing professional learning community teams for 1 year. But nobody's perfect after a year, right? It takes a while for things to kind of click. So one of the things that we did together was to make sure that everybody had a common understanding of what it meant. For instance, they talked about professional learning communities as the teams. So each team called itself a professional learning community. And I said, okay, that's fine, but do you want to have separate schools, separate teams, or whatever, or do you want to have a professional learning community? And in a little while, you're going to hear a little video clip, and Adele starts it by saying, we are a professional learning community at Webster. So what we did was we increased that vision. So then they became the Webster Professional Learning Community, not the 6th grade professional learning community at Wilson School. So see the difference? Just a slight shift in focus. Now, this you do not have in your handouts. It was my omission, but you will have references to the slides. So when you reference the slide deck, that will be in here. I'm sorry if I'm standing in front of this. This again is something that I worked on with the Webster District. You might have seen this. Did you see it this morning? Yeah. Okay, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But one of the things I do when I do lead teacher or new lead teacher training, which I come back and do every year, is to ask the teams where they would put themselves on this cycle. Did Adele talk to you about that at all? No, that's okay if she didn't. Where do you think most of the teams put themselves?
Implementing those strategies.
That's optimistic. We're getting there. We are getting there to this point. What we were finding over the even past 2 or 3 years is they were all coming in on this side. So if you hear Adele talking about moving to the left side, because we start here, we go around. So we were clarifying the outcomes, gathering. That took some doing, getting used to formative and summative assessments, learning how to work with data, because PLCs in their truest form are data driven, right? So it's not just kind of what we would like. It was, it's based upon some numbers. Excuse me. Analyzing. Now, sometimes we would get this far, identifying the most powerful teaching strategies, but then we would, in the classroom, be on to the next thing. So we never really got to implementing, assessing. And even now, this year I did new lead teacher training. A lot of the people were here, let's say this far. Maybe 1 or 2 of the teams only got this far. So I'm telling you that for 2 reasons. One, for you to be realistic in what it is and help your teams to be realistic so they don't get frustrated. And another is to think about what does it mean to set up an environment where a team might get through the whole cycle. Maybe it means they're just going to get through the whole cycle with one piece, not the whole amount of information that they're teaching. Does that make sense? Okay. So you have that. You mentioned a few key words here, and I'm going to talk about some important key elements. But even this morning, we had a group of folks that were perhaps a little bit further along in the PLC journey. I want to have you do this exercise in a couple of minutes of where are you in your journey towards becoming a professional learning community. But again and again, at the end of the day, when I ask them, what is it that you're going to do when you walk out of this room, and these are some school districts that think they have, professional learning communities, they said, we have to go back and clarify the vision. So it's, you know, it's going back to that basics. What is it that we mean by being a professional learning community? And does everybody agree or understand what that means? So clarity, consistency, and so who said communication? All right, communication, very important. So you hit on some of the key items there. What I'd like to do next is have you turn to page 44 in your handout material. It's towards the end. Then we're going to flip back. And I would like you to identify by circling a section of that. It's kind of it's sort of a version of this chart. This belongs to Solution Tree, but they do not have a handout, and I didn't want to duplicate it exactly, so I gave them credit and just made something that was similar to that so that you would have a handout. But look at this diagram, and I'm thinking most of you are probably going to be towards the left because you said you're sort of just starting out. Circle what you think, the spot where you think you are now in terms of your PLC journey or your teacher leader development if you're not specifically doing PLCs. Then I'm going to ask you at your tables, if you have colleagues that are from the same district, to try to come to some agreement on where you think you are as a district. And if you're a solitary person that's not with a district, you know, you could just kind of listen to that information or share where you think your district is, and not only where, but why you're putting yourself there. And I'm going to ask you then as a last step to go up to one of these charts. There's one here and one there. You have sticky notes in the baskets. Write the name of your school district on a sticky note and put your district up there. And when you go to the charts, you'll be able to see where the other districts are from this morning. Any questions about the exercise? Okay, you may begin. I knew you had a lot of, you were getting a lot of information this morning from Adele's team about what it means to be a professional learning community. You were hearing about a lot of the strategies that they've used to be successful. So what I'm going to be focusing on this afternoon is actually giving you a technique that you can use to lead the change process. And that will become useful to you no matter what kind of a change you're thinking about making. So as a leader, it will be helpful to you. As a person, it can be helpful to you. Because how many people here love change? Oh, we got 2 people, 3 people. Okay. This morning we had none. Maybe it was they didn't have their caffeine yet. I don't know. But we're going to use a technique called force field analysis. If you look at page 40 in your handouts, it talks about what force field analysis is. It's a technique that was developed by a gentleman by the name of Kurt Lewin, and it looks at change as the activity between a set of opposing forces. So we start with the status quo, which is where you are now. And as we went through this exercise this morning, I kind of had to go around to the tables to clarify exactly what it is they were looking at. And you'll see as we go through our example exercise, I think a little bit more clearly why that's important. But the status quo is where we are now. The forces that are pushing up are the forces that would be driving you or driving a group towards making the change that you want to see made or that needs to be made. And anytime you have people driving for change, what do you have on the opposite? Resistance. Yep, you have pushing against change. So the more that you drive, you know, if all you're doing is driving, then the more resistance you're going to get. So let's talk about how we can make that a little bit different. I'm going to go back actually a couple of slides. I think I'm clicking too much. Driving, restraining. Cool. All right, so what you were saying to me was, first of all, if we have these in equal balance, we have dynamic equilibrium, which means what? Nothing. Okay. So the first thing you have to do is think about, do we want to make a change? You know, because as you heard this morning, somebody said, we had lunch together and a person said, boy, it takes a lot of work to do this. And it does. But you have to look at what the situation is. What are your motivating factors? Are you happy with the way things are? Or as one person said to me this morning, it's time for a change. it's just time. She happened to be the superintendent of her district, and she said that very strongly, which is good. It's because leadership in something like this is important. So as long as there's no upset in the balance, you'll have status quo. One of the ways that we try to affect change is we try to drive harder. So we increase the driving forces. As the driving forces start to push harder, what do you think happens? Okay, restraining forces start to come in harder. And you have usually more resistance. So if all you're doing is pushing, you're going to get pushed back. So you're still not really going to, you might get some movement, but you're not going to get a lot of movement. So what other way can we change the balance of the forces rather than just driving harder? Yes?
You have to get people to understand the need for the change.
Yes, and that's part of doing what? As it relates to this diagram, what is that?
Take away some of the restraining.
That's right. Exactly right. So, as we eliminate some of the restraining forces, things are going to happen without as much difficulty. Never easily, but without as much difficulty. And there's your vehicle for change. Yes?
I always know when I hit that tipping point, when you're reviewing documents that you've created in this long, slow process, and people are wordsmithing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not talking about the content or the ideas, those have been accepted.
Yeah.
And now they're saying you forgot the S.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then you know you passed.
go,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's in my head.
That's good. That's good, because then it's internalized, right? And that's what we're looking for. And this can be used on an individual basis, classroom basis, school basis, district basis. You know, some of you said, and probably not kiddingly, that you like change, but you notice the majority of us did not raise our hands. So even if it's a personal change, and even if it's something that you've chosen, like maybe you've chosen to take a job in another district, maybe in another state or another area of New York, and it involves a move and there's nobody that you know there, there's driving and restraining forces for you. And if all you're allowing to impact your life is the driving forces, it's going to increase your stress and it's going to make it harder for you to adjust to the change. So even on a personal level, if you have to go through a big change, think about, all right, I know I have to deal with the driving forces. What are the restraining forces, and how can I eliminate some of those to make this more acceptable to me personally? Does that make sense? So it can be a personal application, classroom, school, or district. Anybody that's in a leadership position certainly can use this technique. Page 42. Now this you have in your handouts, you don't have in the slide deck. I don't know what I was thinking when I put this together, but these are the steps to the force field analysis that we're going to use today. And whether or not you're thinking specifically about professional learning communities, whatever change it is you're trying to think about, these steps will apply. The first thing you do is to identify the situation as specifically as you can, diagram the force field, take a look at the restraining forces, try to pick out one or two that can be reduced or eliminated, brainstorm ways to do that, think about some actions that can be taken, and develop an action plan. So we're going to walk through an exercise. Now this is a large group and it's diverse, but I would like to facilitate the exercise once first before I ask you to do it, just so you can kind of see how it works. Any questions about the steps? Okay. Did I see a hand? No. Okay. Oops. All right. So let's talk about, I think I want to do the exercise first, and then we're going to come back to this, okay? So let's talk about how we use force field analysis. I'm going to begin to create a scenario for you, and it might be a little bit different from this morning. Let's say that you are a school district that does not have professional learning communities at all yet, and you would like to think about becoming a professional learning community and what that would involve. So your status quo is no professional learning communities yet, just came back from the state conference, all excited, and now I want to bring this to my district, right? Now, we're going to diagram the force field, I'm actually going to diagram it this way. And you're going to see up on the Elmo, or up on, going to use the screen here, what I'm going to write, because my handwriting will not necessarily be clear enough for everybody or large enough for everybody. So these are going to be our driving forces, and these are going to be our restraining. Down. Here's something I want to make clear. And it became clear this morning as we started to do the exercise. That's why, somebody said, well, how are you going to do this exercise? Like, script what's going to happen. I said, I can't script it because every time I get a different group, the exercise changes depending on who the group is. So what I want you to think about is, because what we started to do this morning, although we were using a slightly different status quo, was think about how the district has driving forces and restraining forces. What I want you to think about for this exercise is the driving forces and the restraining forces that exist with the teachers. You see the difference? Okay, because there might be one set of forces that would motivate the people in this room or hinder, and there might be another set that would be at work with the teachers. So would you find it valuable for us to have that conversation as an example? Okay. So, district doesn't have professional learning communities. You guys are all excited as leaders. You go back, you want to start doing this, and you think about the teachers, and you say, okay, what would be the forces at work that would make my teachers want to move in this direction? All right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be positive, negative, whatever, but just give me one. Yes?
They want to improve student performance.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
APPR, which includes that, but observations of that the whole process.
Yes. What else would be driving your teachers? And those of you that have already started to implement this, think about the teachers that are doing it. What motivates them? Yes.
Opportunities for personal growth.
And as you can see by the way I'm doing this, I don't lecture, so I don't give you a lot of these answers. I kind of wait and I try to get different people to talk to me. So just try not to be shy. There's not really a wrong answer to these kind of things. So just try to offer me your opinion. That would be great. Yes?
I think also an opportunity to hear from their colleagues on a regular basis, what works, what doesn't.
Absolutely. That is a motivating force. Yes?
The chance to have a voice in what goes on.
Mm-hmm. Having a voice. Yes?
More structured use of time.
Okay. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. Rather than having unfocused time together, a more focused time, whether it's common planning time or something along those lines.
And believe it or not, and hopefully you do believe, that's what teachers want. Because when we went into, and I keep using Webster because we're using them as an example, and Adele has given me the freedom to share with you what some of the things that happened there. But when I went, the first thing they asked me to do, well, the first thing we did was this. We did a force field analysis. I went in with the curriculum development team, I think, her leadership team, and we said, where are we now? They were a year into PLCs. What are the driving forces that are going to lead us to improve, and what are the restraining forces? And one of the things we decided was that maybe we weren't completely sure on the where are we now. So they asked me to do focus groups. And I went around and I talked to the teachers, the lead teachers, the administrators, the senior administrators, and I asked questions with the idea that everything would be confidential and that I would share back answers without names attached, but the leaders would get the message. And I prepared a 12-page report with themes saying, this is what worked, this is what's working, this is what's not working. And one of the things that they talked about was those that even had professional learning community teams that weren't effective, it frustrated them. They wanted, like, I said to one group, well, what does your professional learning community team do? We're kind of like a book club. We read a book and then we talk, which is lovely, but it's not exactly where they even wanted to be. But they didn't. A lot of times you have teams and they don't know what to do, and the lead teachers don't know what to do, and possibly the people sitting in this room yet don't know what to do. All right, so meaningful activity. I went a little too far with your
No, you're
message,
exactly-
but
that's
it's
exactly
important.
what I was talking
Okay, restraining forces. What might be working against us? Time. Lack of time. Again, think about this from the perspective of the teachers, not necessarily us. Yes, sir.
Contract.
Okay. Yep.
The perception of more work.
Resistance to change.
Just general resistance to change.
The lack of good data.
Lack of good data. I'm sorry?
Independent contractor mode.
Okay.
Work by myself.
Okay.
Like that.
I'll just put independent mode then, is that, okay. Which happened at Webster too. You know, it's a culture change. You're taking teachers maybe who for years, I walk into my classroom, I shut the door and I teach. And now you're telling me I have to collaborate with other people, and I may not agree with those people, and you're going to tell me how I'm going to teach? So, you know, that's a natural, and what do we call it?
Independent contractor.
Okay. I'm going to put independent teaching mode. Because it could be a contractor, it could be anybody.
Lack of training.
Say it again?
Lack of training.
Lack of training. You're asking me to be on a team, you're asking me to lead a team. I don't exactly know what you want me to do. I've never led a team before. So can you give me some idea of what it is that I should be doing? Good.
It's also purpose.
Lack of purpose, lack of purpose, okay? So they need to understand the purpose. What's in it for me? Not, is it going to make the district look good or whatever, but why should I make this change? That's what we all need in order to make some shifts. Yes?
No trust in its effectiveness.
Okay. You know what's interesting? You're coming, and I'm not saying this to be, you're coming up with a lot of more resisting forces than we had this morning, but that just shows me that in the beginning, it's harder, you know? So this is really good. Yes, ma'am.
Lack of trust or respect for leadership.
Okay.
I was thinking more overreaching.
Okay. One more. One more, if we have one. We don't really need it.
The lack of honoring the PL. Like if you don't have managerial support for this, and then we don't honor your time, we take away your PLC time because I need you to cover the kindergarten classroom, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. So I'm not honoring the work.
Okay, so not honoring the work via lack of administration support, perhaps. Okay. I'm trying to get like a sentence with all the pieces. All right. So we have a lot of possible ground we could cover if we were doing this for real. And the next step would be to take a look at the restraining forces and think about where we want to go with this. We said we want to minimize or reduce some of the restraining forces. A couple of these might be things that, while they're valid restraining forces, we have to acknowledge them, we have to validate people for feeling the way they feel. They might not be the best use of our time in terms of developing an action plan because maybe there's not that much we can do about it, and there's other things that we can do more about. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's look at this, and for the purposes of this discussion, of what we would have control over, like say right now, what might we eliminate as a restraining force that we are going to take a look at? Contract. Okay, so probably like between now and September, you're not going to be changing that. So again, I'm not crossing it out because we're not going to,
Can you group some together?
yes.
Because information like perception, more work, and, somebody's head just went, the purpose.
Perception,
They can be grouped together.
lack of purpose.
You can't eliminate, oh, wait, I guess I'm thinking wrong. I'm trying to identify which ones we can work on.
Okay, well, let's do that first, and then we'll go, well, then we'll link, okay?
Group all the trust, there's a couple there that say trust, that could go into
Okay,
one group.
so we have a trust thing here, a trust thing here. Anyplace else? Am I missing trust? And let's go back to your point of which ones would go together for that?
The purpose and, the perception, like they need, that it's more work, and then
Even independent
Yes.
teaching mode would kind of be the same type of thing. Okay. Anything else that we either want to eliminate or group? Okay. Our next step is to select a restraining force or combination of, one or two or three restraining forces that we are going to look at in terms of ways to minimize or reduce. So for purposes of this discussion here, what would you like to select? Would you like to talk about how we can deal with trust of the effectiveness of the process and trust for the support of leadership? Or do we want to take a look at having the perception of more work, the lack of purpose, being in independent teaching mode? I'm going to tell you right now that for the purposes of our discussion, I think the idea of talking about trust might take us way off somewhere where, we're at such different places, so I would recommend that we look at the other. All right? So if you're in agreement with me there.
I think the easiest one is lack of training. To me, that seems like the easiest one to overcome first.
Okay.
And then that kind of thing will influence some of the other things.
Okay. All right.
in that training, you're gonna talk about the purpose.
Okay.
You're gonna discuss the perceptions of what people have.
Yeah, when we did the training for Webster, it wasn't just, how do you lead a meeting? It was first, what does it mean to be a professional learning community? What does a lead teacher do? What does the administrator do? What is the work cycle? So I don't know your name, I'm sorry, you mentioned Tracy. So you're saying lack of training could encompass a lot of other things. Okay, so let's talk about reduce the restraining force of lack of training. Okay, keeping in mind some of these things that we identified as issues. So now we are a group of administrators and leaders that are thinking we want to start professional learning community teams. We know that there are some issues that are causing resistance, and as our next step, we want to do some professional development to help people to learn more and to be more bought in. So what would our steps be in order to make that happen? Would you want to think about what the topics would be? Would you want to think about when the training would be? What would be your action plan steps? We're not actually looking at specific things yet. Go ahead.
Probably what would be included in the training.
Okay.
So the content.
Content.
What resources are out there to teach that content?
Did I hear another?
You said when
When?
and who.
Yeah, who, what, when, where, why? Okay.
How long?
How long?
Well, not only how long, but how, period.
How? Okay, methodology. So Michelle, Adele might have shared with you that at Webster, after we did the needs assessment, we shared that information with all of the leaders, a lot of transparency there, all of the leaders and all of the lead teachers. So there wasn't any secret behind the scenes, oh, this is what somebody told us, but you're never going to know what it was. It was, I put it out there. And we actually did it at at our first training. We had 3 days of administrative retreat, and 2 days of lead teacher training during the summer. Just so you know, I'm not saying that's everybody's model, but that's what they started with. So, this is good general planning. Now let's break this down a little bit more and say, for instance, I don't know, you tell me, which one would we want to attack first if we're going to make a plan? Would it be the who? Okay.
I think the content, what you're gonna do,
Okay.
is to determine who goes.
Okay, so we'll start with the content. And again, diverse group, different needs, but we're talking in general, right? You've all planned professional development, I'm sure, before. So if you were doing professional development for your administrators and lead teachers, because let's not say, you know, we don't want to exclude those folks, right? And you know that you have this kind of driving and restraining forces, what types of professional development, and again, this is going to feed into what you said in the beginning you would like to learn about, so we'll talk about it. What types of professional development, content-wise, would you want?
I would call Webster and have them come.
Okay, that's the how. That's the how.
What?
Okay,
Tell people, what is a PLC?
what is it? Which means that prior to the professional development, the leaders are going to have to agree on that, correct? Right.
Which means they have to look at the resources,
Yes.
read themselves to figure it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And talk and reach consensus, you know.
What is not a PLC?
Okay.
Should also be up there.
That's a great one. What is not a PLC? At Webster they had PLCs and then they had BLTs. The BLTs were the building leadership teams. And a BLT in a school was made up of all the lead teachers in that school. And when I went around to do the needs assessment, I found out that, and again, we didn't point any fingers and say, oh, shame on you, you know, you're not doing this right. The principals were looking at the BLTs to solve some problems like in the building. You know, these are my lead teachers, they're my leaders, so let's talk about ordering supplies and how we plan, you know, whatever it is. So they were not really focused on student learning, they were looking at other things. Legitimate things, but again, what is it not a PLC? So for those folks, we had to say, what is a BLT and what is not a BLT? So that's a great question. What else would you want to cover? Yes?
Why?
Ah,
Why just PLC?
I'm going to put that even over the what. We're going to talk a little bit right after this about purpose and how come it's so important. Why is it so important? That's really key. What else?
Why not?
Why not? Okay.
What makes it effective? What makes it effective?
Good.
What are the habits that are effective?
Yes.
Kind of going along with that, maybe a case study.
Who said?
I said kind of going along with what Tracy said, like a case study. That
Yeah, case study.
You know.
Again, you know, because I work with Webster for so long on this, what we actually did was we went around to, and you're going to see one of the video clips, what are considered, and this is after I guess I was there maybe 2 years or 2.5, 3 years, what were considered to be high-performing professional learning community teams, and we asked them questions, and we videotaped them, and we showed those tapes at our training.
That's when we said you needed to have it this.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, you had to have models of effective, what does it look like?
Okay,
You
okay.
need that compelling image of achievement.
Yeah.
So you don't know what it looks like at the end, then you need like that stretch goal, right?
Yep.
You might just take one step forward where you really realize, oh, I need to take 5 to be on a good trajectory to get to the end.
Right. And if you're just starting, you may not have internal models, you may have to have external models, okay? So anything else that you would want to cover in your initial training? All right, so are you getting the idea of the force field analysis process, all right? We start with here we are, you know, what do we want to attack? What are the driving forces? What are the restraining forces? What are some restraining forces that we can do something about? Now, we just picked one, right? Then there would be the next one and the next one and the next one. And we have several different possible actions, and we only picked one. All right, now the key to taking the next step of that would be to and you have this in your handouts on page 45, actually develop an action plan, which I'm going to ask you to do in your groups when you do this as a district for yourselves. So if we were going to think about content, or even going back to reducing the restraining forces, let me put this back up here. And say it was the people in this room around the table from your school. So you had perhaps the superintendent, a couple of administrators, some teachers. What is it that we're going to do? So how do we determine the content? Who's going to be responsible for that? Do we go to the teacher? I went to you, didn't I? I went to you and I said, what do you want to learn in this session today? If you can go to the people that are going to be your audience and ask them what they need to learn, and that's what I did at Webster too, what do you want to learn? And they said, teach me how to facilitate a meeting. Teach me how to deal with conflict. You know, teach me, those were the, so when I stood up there and taught, I was a snap, right? Because I'm telling you what you want to hear, what you need to know. So that would be something that you could think about, is how do we determine the content? Who's going to do it? When is it going to be done by? So you have people taking responsibility, you have action dates, you have specific steps. Does that make sense? Okay, we good so far? So the next thing we're going to do is, if we could go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to show you a video, which is maybe a 1 or 2 minute clip about purpose. This gentleman over here said that was so important. And this tape made itself. I asked a lot of questions, and this is what the lead teachers came up with.
Our professional learning community, that is our learning focus at Webster Schools. So that's our district. Each building has collaborative teams strategically designed to cultivate the use of data in the daily work and daily practice. When you do this work well, you can encourage the learning of each student, and it's wonderful. It's exactly what we should be doing for kids.
And looking at how long it took the students to get certain concepts compared to now is astounding. It's just because they have those basics so solidly. And sometimes it's half the amount of time it takes them to master something new like long division because they have everything else.
I think the opportunity to have everybody together in a group, in the same room, discussing best practices, discussing, how do you do this? I'm having a problem here, what do you think I should do? Or just sharing something really exciting that you've come up with. Having, leading that kind of a group and being a part of that kind of a group has really led to an evolution in our program. And we've come so far just because we've worked together and we've built this program together. And to me, that's, I don't think anything can be better than that.
There are children that we work together because it is about the work and the student. This is a group, we're working together for the kids. And not us, it's about what we're doing for the kids.
In the end, we know that it's in the best interest of the children. And
You're here for one reason, you're here for kids. There are a lot of kids.
These are our kids.
Ultimately, it's about what are we doing for the kids. Everybody knows that it's truly for the students.
Get it? See how many different teams there were? Elementary, middle school, high school, and this video built itself. When I went back with their video person, we were putting together different, like what's the role of a lead teacher? I said, we have to do something on purpose because these teachers are telling us that there's a theme and the importance of this is the kids and improve. And if we keep going back to that focus, then a lot of these restraining forces don't become as important because, like this woman said, why not, right? We want to improve things for the kids. So that's why it's critical for you to know what you're doing, to be clear about it, to involve the teachers, and to define what it is you think is the purpose, and then to have them buy into it. So, thank you. Good point. All right, you have, I think in your handout material, this Randy Chambers quote. Think about yourself. And when I read this periodically when I'm doing training, I do think about myself. If you tell me to do something, if you tell me to do training, you know, I can put together training. If I was doing presentation skills training here, I could do that for you. But if you tell me to do training and you explain to me the value of it and the reason, so I know that I'm preparing you guys to go back, hopefully, and start doing something that's going to improve student learning, that's a reason for me to do this. And you know I'm going to put my heart and soul into it, and so are your teachers. So that's what I want you to have in the back of your head, is understanding the purpose from your perspective and then the teachers understanding it. Any questions about that? Okay, any handouts that you see up here that are not in your deck, you'll be able to get a link to, right? So you'll be able to have access to all that. One more thing I want to go over, and then I'm going to get you into groups doing your own exercise. In working with Webster and some other school districts, and even companies and things, and talking about how to accomplish change, these are some things that are kind of key to mission success. Number one, the objective assessment of current PLC status. You need a person, and it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to really even be an outsider, but somebody that the people, the teachers, the administrators perceive to be objective, okay, to come in and talk about what are we doing with our PLCs. Now, if you haven't really started yet, then that might be a premature step for you. But if you've started, or you have pockets of things going on, or some people said we have different things and we kind of need to pull it together, that would be a good place to make that status quo. Where are we? You know, to have somebody come in, allow people to be open and honest, and then allow there to be two-way communication. So that the teachers, the administrators, they talk about what's working, what isn't working, and then the administrators are willing to hear that. And I don't know if I mentioned this, I'm sorry if I'm repeating because I did it this morning, but after the needs assessment, there was a 12-page report with different, you know, themes and things of what was working and what needed to change. And Webster had me present that to all of the administrators and all of the lead teachers. So there was complete transparency. There was no hidden agenda or anything. And of course, when I interviewed the teachers, they were concerned about what they had to say, so they were told, which was true, that nothing that they shared would be shared with their name attached. So there were concepts, not people, you know. Oh, Joe Smith said, you know, everything would work if it wasn't for his principal, you know, so we didn't do that kind of thing. Clarity of goal, I think we talked about. A couple of principals were just chuckling. Commitment to purpose, definition of PLC structure and roles. You said to me, what does it look like? How does it work? What does a lead teacher do? What does an administrator do? And that was an issue. You know, I'm an administrator, I'm a building principal. Do I sit in on all the PLC meetings? Am I expected to lead the meetings? You know, what's my role? Collaborative planning, professional development. You need to track the progress of the teams. One of the things that happened at Webster was the first thing I asked them when I wanted to do the focus groups was, can you give me a list of all of your PLC teams? Tell me, you know, where the teams are, what schools. Can't do that, didn't exist. Okay, so we've been, and again, Dell's given me permission to share this, but you know, so they had the good things happening, but nobody really knew exactly what was happening or where they were or what they were doing. So the first step was, let's get a list so we can identify the teams, and then we can kind of touch base with them and see what's going on. What's the importance of celebrating success from your experience? Yes?
You're looking at the result of your hard work.
Right.
And it's a positive thing.
Exactly. How often do we do that? How often do you do that for yourself? Never, okay? You know, you just work and you do a great job, and then you work and then you do a great job, but there's never any like, okay, nice job. And one of the teachers that was here this morning, after we, you know, did all the activities, he said, I blew it. I said, what do you mean you blew it? He said, we did great work, and I never at the end of the session or at the end of the time said, thank you, you did good work. I said, okay, live and learn. You won't do that again, you know? But just that acknowledgement of all the hard work, or from the standpoint of the teacher, celebration. I'm not saying you have to have a pizza party every week, you know, but some way to kind of acknowledge how good a job everybody's done. So would you agree that these are some key elements? This is what I'm going to ask you to do next. I'm going to ask you at your tables to conduct a force field analysis activity around some component of moving your professional learning community team process forward. So that means you would have to identify what your status quo is, and I'm going to go around and help you, okay? What your status quo is, what are the driving forces, what are the restraining forces, and I would like you to agree on at least one action that you will take between now and, say, September that's going to help to move you forward. Because if you walk out of here and it's just, oh, that was a nice warm fuzzy and I kind of learned, I heard about something, but you don't know how to use it and you don't walk out with any action to take, then to me, I haven't done my job. I want you to have something concrete in your hands that you can use, okay? So are you comfortable with the assignment? Do you have any questions about the assignment? And I am going to ask you to document the force field, because we're going to do a share out, real quick share out at the end. I'm not the whole thing, but just your share out of what your action step was that you decided to take. So if somebody would agree at each table to be the scribe, to document the force field, and I'm going to come around and help you. And if there's more than one group, or if you have some singletons together, just think about how you want to handle that, okay? You can use the worksheet if you want. What brave group would like to share out first? Okay. If you would kindly give your attention to this group, they're going to share what their action step is going to be.
All right, so we talked about that there was time already built in for meetings. However, these meetings were not productive at all for many, many reasons. So we looked at our goal being as to improve the accountability and productivity of these meetings. And our action step is to have the teachers go through this force field analysis on their own. What would a PLC in a productive meeting look like through self-reflection?
Excellent. Good next step. That's a very good next step. Yes. This group over here? Did you come up with an action step?
We're talking, just a couple more
I'll come back. I'll come back. Okay. This group over here?
Yes, you just want our action steps?
Well, no, you can, as much as you want to share. The action step by itself might not make much sense, so.
We have some teams in place, but we feel that there are no clear goals or overlying vision as far as the district goes. So
Okay.
we, obviously the training and the support was one of the restraining forces that we wanted to try to eliminate. And the first step would be to explain how PLCs support building level visions and how those building level visions connect to the district's mission statement or missions, and also to support the building level visions and shift the way that meetings are conducted and the work is done more like a PLC.
Okay, so what's your action step going to be when you go back? What's the first action step you're going to take?
I don't think we just
develop those building level visions that support the mission statement.
Okay, okay. I'm being picky, but it's because I want you to have something that's concrete. Okay. Next, sir. This group over here.
I looked at it, we looked at it from a district perspective, but then we
Fine.
operationalized it to a school level, and looked at how the building needs to set the mission and vision and have very clarity on that, and set a very clear goal. And then I've actually created a framework, like a visual, that actually does that.
Okay.
So if you've got planning and preparation, you've got effective planning and then effective implementation, what does that look like? And how do you reflect upon practice? And the structure would then be to drip this out in terms of PLCs.
Okay.
And then that structure is already in place in our school, in our SEP.
Okay.
And so the next step, the next action step is to actually do this force field analysis at our school-based planning team level.
Perfect. Perfect.
To analyze the resistance. Because
Perfect.
we've done PLCs in the past, but we get stuck about purpose or process.
Okay.
And we do have some new things in place now at the district level
Okay.
that we will implement. But I want that to come from
Excellent.
the team.
Excellent. Very good. Two ladies in the back, did you?
We're kind of in the same situation that the yellow table is.
Okay.
We've had PLCs in the past. but I don't think that we have a common understanding as a district of what that work is and what it looks like. But wanting to honor what has been done, we don't want to sweep that aside.
Yes.
So our action step would be to assess the PLCs that have already taken place.
Good.
Look at the work that they've done, what have their outcomes been, and what were their challenges and what were their successes. So
Excellent.
that would be the first thing.
Excellent. Very nice. Very good. This group here?
We have 62 teachers and 16 principals across 7 districts who are participating in this. They're going to be our PLC leaders across the districts. And so, like them, they've all had different experiences with PLC. So the first thing we really wanted to do is help develop a clear and coherent understanding of what a PLC is, so everybody's going out there with the same message. We have a limited time for a rollout. It's hard to get people from 7 different districts together. So we decided that one of the things we need to do is to develop some materials online, and I want to be sure that I put this right, with some guiding questions, prompts, and protocols so that they can do some prep work. We're going to flip the classroom, do some prep work, so when we do have them,
Good.
we can have those really good, deep discussions.
Good. Excellent. Good plan. These folks here?
Well, we here because we got the STLE grant.
Okay.
And we have teacher leaders identified.
Right.
And this will really be the first school year now where they're going to be available to the staff.
Okay.
So what we thought we would do
Okay,
is,
folks, let me ask you to give them courtesy of just listening to their report, too.
Well, what we thought we would do is I'd meet with the building principals.
Okay.
Talk about the common planning time that we already have. We have time built in, but turning those around to PLC so
All right.
that when the STLE teacher leaders come into those buildings, those grade levels will be building what they want to see as the help.
Nice. So you're going to start with the building administrators, correct?
Start there, and then as we figured, like at the end of September, we would meet with them again to sort of say, do this activity. What are you seeing as a block? What are you seeing as
Excellent.
so that we
Excellent.
can move it that way.
Good. Very good. So you're just starting, or you have pockets of things, but now you're thinking about ways to make it all come together. Nice work. Did you folks look on something slightly different, or?
No,
Nope.
well, something similar. I mean, obviously, fully in admittance that we're not going in that direction. But
Right.
in the same sense, we know we have work that has to be done,
Mhm.
and we're doing a lot with data-driven instruction,
Mhm.
which is a piece of this.
Yes, it is.
Without going into that. So we used our example of elementary math.
Okay.
And we're having teams of people meeting using our grant with our new teacher on assignment.
Wonderful.
To talk about that data and analyzing the results and how to make change. And so we did last year use the modules in practice, but we never got to the actual using it for learning
Okay.
piece. So that's
Okay.
where we focused on. And we said, well, if we're going to, in 4 buildings in our district, all have the people using it for learning,
Mhm.
we have to have the analysis of the data done at the same time.
Okay.
So our restraining force, it was kind of the timeline and the system of all of that.
Okay.
So our first action step is my TOA. I noticed how I put who's responsible for it. My TOA will be working with each grade level and the leaders at that grade level to set a clear curriculum timeline of how many days each module will take with an approximate time, so we can start setting target dates to have the meetings and everyone will have the data to bring. So
Excellent.
that first barrier hopefully is gone, and then she can work from there.
And what I like is that you are being, and you're slightly different situation here too, but you are being very specific and you're having reasonable targets, which I like. So that's really good. How about this group?
We don't have PLCs.
Okay.
We're just starting our STLEs as well.
All right.
And we thought first thing we needed to do was get the administration and Board of Ed on board
Mhm.
and understand what PLCs were. And our action plan was to use superintendent's days to train the administration first.
Okay. May I suggest that rather than saying train the administration, you want to have a no, not even that. You want to have a conversation with them so that they become, rather than a tell, it's going to be a collaborative. Does that make sense? Because if we're just going to inform you, then that's going to be like push, resistance. So you want to engage them in a conversation of what could this look like in our district to kind of get them to feel like they're part of it. Does that make sense? Okay.
We actually kind of had that in.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine, that's fine. Okay. Did I miss any districts? Yes, come back to you.
I'm kidding. All right, our goal is to just start PLC.
All right.
And our first action step is to collaborate and plan with all the stakeholders, which would be central office, building administrators, teacher leaders,
Right.
and the heads of our two unions, administration and teachers union. Board of Ed, our style appointees, because they're gonna be part of the puzzle. And focus on what a PLC truly is and what our goal is, or work
Excellent.
together
Excellent.
to develop what the PLC will be. And then our first restraining forces would be time and communication. Communication, the easier of the two,
Okay.
but time is gonna be a challenge.
It will be a challenge. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Did you have feedback from your group?
Well, I'm with State Ed.
Yes.
I could
Oh.
share a little bit for
Okay,
kids,
sure,
but
please
wanted
do.
to apologize, they had to
That's okay.
step out. But one of the things that they looked at is that they have pockets of PLCs in their district and getting responses like we already do that.
Yes.
And so ultimately, they wanted to celebrate what's being done,
Good.
but talk about what can be done in addition.
Excellent. Excellent.
And I think their action step, I think they had a meeting scheduled for a certain stakeholder groups. I didn't get that.
Okay.
But they said it was, it's coming up in a week.
That's okay. Well, but they have a set action step
action.
as their next step. Very good. I would like to give you, like to have you give yourselves a round of applause. Was that useful?
Yes.
Okay, I'm very proud of you guys. I mean, this in a way is tougher than what I did this morning because there's more unknowns, you know, and there's more resistance because there's more unknowns. So I congratulate you seriously on what you did in these groups just now to clarify where you are and really begin to think about where it is you need to go. And in a way, in some cases, it might be baby steps, but that's okay. You know, if you're thinking about this far, you're not going to get there from here. You have to go from here to here to here to here, and that's what you're planning to do. So I congratulate you on that. If you would please look at your tables, you have a ticket out the door. I would like that information from you, please. They're upside down on the tables if you can't recognize this. On the bottom, there's a space for contact information. If you would like me to contact you, one of the reasons might be I have a LinkedIn PLC group that is not doing anything. And I would love to liven that up by getting a real conversation going among people from different, you know, districts and states. And so if you would like to be a part of that, that would be a reason to contact me, or for me to contact you rather. If you're interested in talking to me about doing professional development or how that would look, that would be a reason for me to contact you. If you have a question about something that happened today and I wasn't able to adequately answer it, or if something comes up, that would be a reason. So any of those reasons, just give me your contact information. This is me and who I am, so these brochures are on the table. And this is a little video of what happened at Webster, so if you're interested in that, I have a couple of these as well. Trying to think, is there anything else I need from you at this point? No. I think the ticket out the door is going to actually make you think about a few things. It was written that way, like what is the restraining force and what's one thing you're going to do when you leave here. So this is going to be, I think, helpful for you as well as helpful for me. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do this now.